application. So there's a continuum of use cases. The critical idea here is that no one use case wins, right? And no one product, you don't buy individual products for these things. Our strategy and our goal is a platform which really supports a continuum of use cases. And why this is important is because users themselves will traverse these different use cases. So a user may start by consuming printed output from a report, and they may end by doing some self-service. Or you may have a developer who's building an application over here, but consuming the output of a self-service experience to drive what they're putting into that embedded use case. And that's okay, right? People can traverse these use cases. And also, organizations themselves may find themselves on an analytic journey. Yeah. So they may begin with simple use cases, and as the organization matures, as we build that culture, they're adding to those use cases. And so we need to build a platform that can support all of those.
Okay. So, I mean, that brings me to the other question about the platform. I think one of the things that's noticeable from the Visualizer Worlds we're doing this year compared to maybe a couple of years ago is we're now talking about this term platform. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, can you just elaborate a little bit more about that in terms of, you know, it's the foundation stone, it's also the ability to develop, I guess, on top of the platform as well. But.
Right. Well, in my opinion, it actually represents a fairly seismic shift in our strategy. So we talked a little bit about this term modern BI and the shift from the report architecture to the modern BI architecture. Where we see this going is a platform-based approach. And so the idea here, in some senses, is quite simple. Rather than business intelligence as a place you go, as a destination in itself, we think about embedding analytic capabilities pervasively across an organization, across operational apps, as an application experience in itself, and sort of having moments of analytics across one's day, right? That are not a place you go to do something, but just happen in the moments of your day-to-day work. And if we can achieve that, then we can really create, we can actually really dramatically increase the amount of analytics that any given user is doing, because it's coming at them through little moments and little experiences through the day. And so that's why this platform approach is so important. Now, there's some obvious technical capabilities here. We want to make open APIs. We want to have this be something that partners can build on. We want this to be something that customers can embed in their existing environments. So openness and APIs are a critical technical foundation, but it's really about creating that the foundation for the future for Qlik.
Okay, that's great. And in fact, I'm glancing down this iPad because we actually are getting questions coming in from the audience. And in fact, there is a question now which is kind of related to what you just talked about, which is a question for Anthony. I'm a developer. I need to build highly customized applications. What toolkits or access can Qlik provide me to help me do that? Which I guess is...
Well, exactly, and I think that's it's a perfect use case for what we call the Qlik Analytic Platform, so this platform approach. So, we have created a whole series of APIs. They're documented in our documentation, and we've also created sort of support experiences that help developers learn and take advantage of these. So two good examples of these. The first is Branch, which is a developer community for seeing examples and learning from what others have done. The other, which we launched very recently, is Playground. Conveniently located at playground.qlik.com, which is a way to try and experience what you can do with the power of the platform without having to install or do anything. So you literally can go to Playground, we have pre-built data sets, you can upload your own, and you can start working with the APIs literally in a few seconds. It's unbelievably powerful, and we're just super excited to see what people do with it.
Great. So, I mean, hopefully that answers the question. I think that's great. So, I mean, the final question is, you're the product guy. What's new and exciting? What's coming up?
Oh, there's so much. So this has been a busy year, and we've released new versions of Qlik Sense. We've released new versions of mPrinting. We're releasing a new version of Qlik View at the end of the year. We have done major revisions to Qlik Cloud with Qlik Cloud Business. There is a tremendous set of capabilities that we're making available. There's a lot new that's coming down the pike that we've done this year, and there's even more exciting work that's in next year. And so if I sort of step back a moment, I think this is as ambitious and exciting a product agenda as Qlik as an organization has ever had in its history. So this is a very exciting time, to be participating in a virtual webinar like this and to be, a member of this community. So.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Great. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Anthony. We'll come back and discuss a little bit more in a minute. Okay, we're going to have a listen to what our Netherlands customers are telling us at their Visualize Your World.
Looking at the data-driven opportunities in the marketplace nowadays, I think it's either you use them or you don't, and if you don't, you die. So it's a matter of survival. Every company has to become data-driven, whether they like it or not. There are plenty of examples already in the world where companies, old school companies, have gone bankrupt because they failed to use their data, and it will only become more and more important. So becoming data-driven is of essence for every single company, whether it's a retailer, a bank, a system integrator like ourselves. Every company needs to become data-driven.
When we become more data-driven, I think the opportunities are that we can make faster decisions and have ideas for new propositions more easily.
So over to Adam. Thanks again for joining us today, Adam. Now, obviously, you are working with customers. You're advising them on strategy and adoption of technologies to gain insight and value. I mean, what's your perspective on the market, and particularly what are customers really looking for around analytics at this moment?
Well, I think we've already touched on some of the trends that we're seeing already. I would say a lot of our clients realize that digitization of everything is here. So some of the facts that you mentioned before, 3.2 billion people on the internet, and it's not just people, it's cars, automobiles, fridges exactly, things. We're looking at probably around about 40 billion devices by 2020. Now, understanding that everybody has a digital heartbeat links in with what you were saying about big data and all this data being created. And that is great, but as we said earlier, it's just data. Yeah. And without intelligence, which is the next trend, we can't do very much with it. So what we're seeing is a lot of clients understanding that they've invested in enterprise data warehouses, relational data models. They're now looking at big data solutions. And now they want to say, well, what's next? I've invested quite a bit, but I'm not getting the insight. So now the trend is moving into the analytics and how to consume the analytics. And visualization is a key important fact from that. An additional megatrend that people are starting to look at is what we call liquid expectations. Now, this is moving slightly away from data and to think a bit more about the consumer before they start applying analytics. So a liquid expectation is understanding that a consumer today won't necessarily see one bank as a competitor as another bank. They'll look at the best in class of, let's say, a checkout experience in Uber, which is as seamless as closing the car door, and then compare that with the checkout experience standing in a shop, standing in a store. And that's really what our clients need to start to understand, which is liquid expectations and the fact that what they had previously from a direct competitor has now changed more to a perceptual competitor. Once you take that trend into consideration and the fact that everything has been digitized and now we have all the data together, now I think they're in a position to start looking at the advanced analytics and how to consume that in a very insight-driven manner.
That's really interesting. Are you finding then that some of the companies that have come up, let's name check some like Uber or whatever, that have become very disruptive kind of business models are actually challenging then the status quo of some of the established businesses today in terms of how they're using analytics?
Yeah, very much so. So in my talk at Visualize Your World, I focused on banking and retail banking with some of the new directives coming from the EU, as well as open banking from the British government. Banks now need to open up their data sources through APIs and allow third parties to build a platform. All of a sudden, you've got anybody pretty much out there could build a banking app and combine credit cards and insurance together. So right now, banks have to compete with well, Apple, Google, and the 20-year-old kid in his bedroom that wants to create a new iOS app. So it's going to change, and it is changing right now. And we're not talking about 2020, we're talking 2017.
Yeah. And it's a blurring of what a company's industry specialism is. I mean, we have customers today who are telcos, but also retailers. Yes. I mean, so the whole thing's becoming blurry. And is that something that you're seeing and that you've seen when you were with Gartner, and now looking at this whole market from a Qlik perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think companies would be well advised not just to look at what's happening in their own industries. That's well and good, but you're always going to be a follower if you do that. But you should really glance out over the entire universe and look at other industries and what companies are doing there and copy some of those models.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's have a look at a customer I recently met at one of the Visualize Your World events.
Очень важна роль пилотного проекта. Именно на стадии пилотного проекта формируются первые отношения к системе. Если система с самого начала выдавала данные, которые не противоречили убеждениям заказчиков или пользователей, то в дальнейшем доверие к системе будет только увеличиваться. И это позволит наиболее полнокровно вести процесс развития проекта. Когда пользователь доверяет данным, у них появляется интерес к развитию системы, у них появляются новые идеи, новые запросы и новые способы i możliwości получить nowe znania.
Po pierwsze, nie bać się tego. Najważniejsze to jest zacząć. I to też, co tutaj rozmawialiśmy w czasie konferencji, bardzo szybko poprzez właśnie tego typu wizualizacje jesteśmy w stanie dostarczyć konkretne rozwiązania. Tak? Konkretne rozwiązania, z którego biznes już może czerpać wymierne korzyści. Także jeżeli korzyści, nie bać się tego, przekonać się, mieć również, bardzo ważne, tak? Przekonać całą organizację do tego, że warto w tym kierunku iść. Tak, przekonać osoby, które pracują z klientami, przekonać prezesów, po prostu, że i zacząć z tego korzystać. Jeżeli z tego nie będzie korzystał szeroko, nie ma co z tego robić.
So, I mean, where do you start with all of this? So, I mean, there's the mega trends, and we're talking about all the technology and everything, but and it'd be interesting to hear from Robert in a minute on the particular case. But where do you advise clients to start with this? I mean, either they're coming from a point of having nothing, or they're part way along the journey, but they're trying to get to the next level.
So, in a lot of presentations, people typically have that analytics curve that shows people starting off with descriptive analytics, so always looking backwards, seeing what happened last month. Then you've got your diagnostic analytics, more root cause analysis, then you're moving to more predictive and then prescriptive. But I think that curve is useful to a point, but it just demonstrates that there's only one road that you have to go along, and what we're advising right now is you can run different areas of your organization at a different pace. So just because you're still trying to get the dashboard working inside marketing, etc., it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be using advanced analytics to detect fraud and get the operational savings from moving call centers onto more insightful driven solutions. So what we're advising is don't just try and take everybody at the same speed. Break up the organization into different areas and allow them to innovate at their own pace.
Right.
And what we can do is we can apply the governance, as you said before, to allow them to move forward but maintain the whole master data example.
Yeah.
One of the things we really don't want to see happen is everybody rush to self-service, because we have seen examples where how many other? 5 of us turn up to a meeting and we all have our really nice dashboard and we've all got the number of customers different. And then what gets blamed? Well, the tool and the data, not the person that actually wrote the business rule. So having that governance model in place, understanding what IT's role is in a self-service enabled company, as well as what the business role is critical for maintaining that data-driven community that we want to build within inside a company.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, finally for now, I mean, are there any particular examples that you would call out of best practices that you're seeing with customers that have really kind of nailed some of these challenges?
I would say the customers that have seen analytics more of a capability instead of a standalone project have been much more successful. So we've at Visualize Your World in 2015, we had Royal Mail up on stage with us. And they were a great example of a company that brought Accenture in and said, we have these business problems and we want to solve them. Let's start with something quite simple. Let's have a look at our network. Where are problems there? Can we support finding optimization in our network from a logistics perspective? Then we move on to the next problem. And they created an ongoing capability. They didn't just say, in 6 months' time, we've done analytics.
Yeah.
And from a best practice perspective, as they went along solving the problems, they got more complicated, they invested more in infrastructure, they invested more in tools once they got familiar with it,
right.
And now they're ready for the self-service journey as well. So that whole maturity and adoption has come over time instead of going big bang.
Yeah, okay. That's really interesting. All right, well, thanks, Adam. We'll come back. There are a couple of questions coming in, but we'll come to those towards the end. So turning to you, Rob, thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Actually, before we speak to you, we've got a short video we're going to run that introduces your organisation, so we'll just roll that video.
Qlik understands the challenges of data in both gaining insight and making intelligent and informed decisions, and provides thousands of customers with the clarity of easily attainable data with visual analytics. The use of Qlik has many successful case studies, one being its use within the healthcare sector at the Wrightington, Wigan and Lee NHS Foundation Trust. This application has made data and information accessible to staff of all levels at the hospital, making it easier to track current and ongoing progress, as well as aid in distinguishing what are the next actions needed to be executed in order to ensure a better care quality for their patients.
Previously, there was no correlation between ward information and board information, and that caused the board to be anxious about the information that they were being presented with, but also didn't really allow the wards to understand the part that they played in the whole organisation's operations.
The biggest challenge of all is that for the last 6 years there has been virtually no extra money coming into the NHS, but demand has been going up all the time. So we have to find ways of improving our services all the time simply to stand still. And the way we have found best of doing that is to ask our staff to come up with the solutions.
We have developed a large suite of applications to support our organisation, ranging from our A&E application to theatre management tools, ways to identify and reduce clinical variation, which is very important, to everything to financial management tools.
The technology and the tools that we're working with are enabling us to better understand where we spend the money, how we can get the most efficiency out of our workforce, where we can reduce waste, and it's by some forerunners proving the concepts of this that hopefully we can then spread at a rapid pace.
Now with Qlik we can provide information in real time. It doesn't require staff to manually produce it and circulate it all the time. It's fully automated.
Our business intelligence team are all about getting the data and making it usable for everybody who works in this trust, and it's really changed the way we do our business.
I'm glad to say that within Wrightington, Wigan and Lee, all the applications we've developed have been proven to reduce inefficiencies, and those inefficiencies and any financial savings can be reinvested in those frontline services, and that now allows us to recruit more doctors or nurses for those services.
I think what we're seeing here is a brilliant coming together of three sources that contribute to the success. So the first is the technical skills of Qlik and the Qlik platform. The second is the understanding of the NHS that comes through Mark Singleton and his business intelligence team. And the third, which is the most crucial of all, is that it's frontline staff themselves that are designing the apps that we use. And it's that triple combination that is producing something which brings together culture and technology to produce the results that we're all so proud of.
All right, great intro, Rob. Thanks for the video, and let's go into some questions. So, WWL, if I can use that abbreviation,
Absolutely.
It's a little bit easier is a NHS Trust. You've won numerous awards. Congratulations on that. Now, what I found really fascinating in the presentations you've given at Visualise Your World, and a lot of people talked about this afterwards, is this terminology used of from ward to boardroom, which I think really has resonated with a number of customers that I've talked to about how to really conceptualize thinking about analytics throughout the whole organisation. And could you talk a little bit more about that and you know, the genesis for how it's really permeated throughout the trust?
Yeah, I can. Thanks, Robert. So I think ward to board has become something of a strapline in the NHS, and it is really important. Our ultimate goal is delivering best patient care. So we've got an organisation of 4,500 staff. 95% of them are on frontline care. So how do a board of 10 directors ensure that they're looking at the right things, and when they're making decisions, it's on the right information, and what the decisions they're making is being followed through on the front line? It's a really significant question.
Yeah.
At WWL, we've probably got 2 examples of tackling that problem kind of tangibly, but also more fundamentally. So A&E is a big issue in the NHS. We have to see our patients within 4 hours. It's a national target. It's on the news regularly. People fail that target regularly. We fortunately last year one of the few in the country to succeed on that. And one of our solutions has been implementing analytics and a digital solution so that the frontline staff and the managers for A&E are seeing the exact same data in real time that the chief exec is in his office, and he's got a flat screen in his office that's showing the exact same data. So tangibly, ward to board is that the same data is being shown at the same time to the people on the front line as it is to the chief exec.
Right.
Direct link. I think more fundamentally, it's about one version of the truth. Getting that trust that there is only one set of data. There isn't a set of data that someone has in a drawer that they're somehow looking at that's different to the organisation, to the management team. So, and I think that takes a little while to convince. But once you've got that trust, really the world's your oyster. So that's really helped us have that trust between what the board is seeing, what the front line is seeing, and quite frankly, the impact of the decisions that are then made.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm interested in what drove, you know, how did this get driven? I mean, was the grand vision strategy, was it a kind of, a small project that kind of mushroomed? Was there a leader within the company, within the trust that was really looking to drive this?
I think the origins of this, from my perspective, I'm finance director, was trying to get more people understanding and working towards financial solutions. Right. So we developed this application, Devolve Financial Management, that meant that managers on the front line could look at their cost centre data real time to a depth that they never could before. They could get pointers as to the areas where they were overspending or underachieving. And it brought them into the fold. It meant that they could look for solutions in their own area that they were the subject matter experts on. Yeah. And it meant that, of course, that the problem, if you like, was shared out. So you're sharing a problem, but you're also sharing a solution as well. And that, again, going back to the trust issue, means that everybody suddenly is invested more in the organisation. Yeah. And we've won lots of awards for staff engagement. And this kind of trust, if you like, starts to develop that staff engagement. People feel it's their organisation, they want to do the right by it, and it's a kind of virtuous circle.
Yeah, I mean, do they feel empowered that they've got access to, some of the data and analysis?
I think that's a great word for it. They do feel empowered. They know that they've got an important part to play in the organisation in delivering these big goals, ambitious goals that the organisation sets. So we want to be in the top 10% for everything we do, and we've been very successful with that. But it's not the board that's been successful. It's been in small pockets of success all the way through the organisation. So empowered is a good term. The flip side of that is accountability. And this is where culture really does come in, because once you start measuring things, it changes what people do. We all know that. So the more visually you measure it, probably the quicker, I would suspect, and I believe that you get a solution. But there is that fine line, if you like, between blame and accountability. And this is where organically it grows in the culture of an organisation. We've luckily got an organisation where people know they're not going to just be blamed for the data that's shown, but actually it will show an issue that we can all work on together.
Yeah, which goes back to this data literacy point that you had in your presentation about being able to work with the data, argue, analyse it together. Yeah. Okay, Rob, well, final question for now. Can you speak to some of the benefits WWL has gained from adopting analytics and maybe Qlik across the organisation?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So we've seen tangible benefits, but also some cultural benefits as well. In terms of bottom line, which is something I'm particularly interested in, through our various applications, we've been able to help the organisation meet its targets. By meeting targets, we avoid penalties. So there's a direct link there financially. So, for example, I talked earlier about the A&E application. If we had missed our A&E target this year, the financial implication would have been just short of £1 million. So there's a direct hit there to our bottom line. We have other applications in the procurement area where we've seen our procurement savings increase 300,000 year on year. And that's by more efficiently and effectively organising ourselves with the same level of staff to go after the bigger savings in our areas of procurement. Through our wider rollout of financial management, we've been able to increase the number of green cost centres that we have. Unfortunately, we still don't have 100%, but just increasing the percentage of green cost centres has saved us approximately $5 million a year.
What's a green cost centre?
A green cost centre is somebody who's meeting their budget effectively, be that income or cost. So that's increased 5% year on year, and that equates to about £5 million. So that's really important. So if you compare it to our BI team, so the people who are directly involved in building this stuff and putting it in managing it, you're looking at a kind of about an 8-to-1 return, which is fabulous for any finance director to hear. I think the more fundamental, if you like, benefit we get though is the cultural stuff. I've already mentioned it. Is people willing to participate? I mean, the NHS is a fabulous organisation. And quite frankly, it runs on discretionary effort. People don't go home at the end of their shift. They go the extra mile. If a patient is there, they need to stay and serve them. The way you get that buy-in is by getting trust in your employees, by getting people who want to be there, who feel they're valued, who feel they've got a voice and a say. And this is where you get the kind of bi-directional analytics at play. I think we talked about it earlier. And that has had a massive impact on our organisation.
Right, that's fantastic. I mean, just on that point, it just strikes me if anybody has any comments around that, just particularly on the TCO piece, because you're talking about the benefits of the empowerment and the cultural piece. But I mean, maybe, I don't know if you've got a comment, Adam, what you're seeing with the customers in terms of the importance of the TCO from a financial benefit piece versus the cultural change and empowerment, and that kind of balance. Are people still very much driven by ROI numbers?
So short answer is definitely yes. When we're implementing new technology or trying to bring analytics, there's always got to be a business case still raised. It's becoming a lot easier to identify the different use cases. As you said, comparing one industry to another is very key right now. We're working with a lot of oil and gas companies right now, and they're using analytics to streamline their maintenance. So shutting down some of the largest mines in the world for 2 months to do maintenance costs them millions and millions a day. So if you're going to invest in technology like Qlik, and buy a number of licenses or build an app that can save just 2 or 3 days off a maintenance cycle, you've paid for the solution, you've paid for the analytics, and you still have a return of investment.
Yeah.
So it's becoming quite easy to identify which use cases work very well with analytics, but there's still a lot of room to innovate further to find new use cases and new industries going forward.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel, Anthony, from a product perspective, from a Qlik perspective, that our products are particularly well suited to any one industry, or is it really across the breadth of all the different kind of verticals out there?
Sure. No, I think that it's any industry that has data and users. So that's everyone, right?
Everyone.
Yeah. But I think I would add here that I think one of the things I've seen in the work that you've done is an iterative approach. And so using this agile sort of bottom-up approach is something that really helps to drive success and something that the product really supports. I don't know if you want to...
No, that's absolutely right. And I think that's... So it's been... Obviously, you need a spark. You need somebody to give them the tools initially. But then this organic growth, and people like success. They like to see that they've got a tool that works for them. It makes their life easier, and somebody's giving them plaudits because the end result is better outcomes. And that grows and grows. Our BI team now have a queue of people wanting them to work on applications, and that's fabulous. From where we started, getting that trust, to where we are now is really the journey, if you like, avoid a cliche, that we've been on. And you're right, bottom up as opposed to top down is really important.
So, Rob, I'm curious. That iterative process is absolutely something, even from a data quality perspective, that I think is very valuable. Yes. Because the more you shine a light on the data, the more you find errors in the data. But does that work in a hospital when you have perhaps the data is about lives?
Sunlight's the best disinfectant, right? So.
Yes. Absolutely. Now, and this is important, particularly when you're starting, I think, the journey, because getting that trust from clinicians, quite frankly, who have better things to do. That's, we're here to serve patients. But actually the best way they can serve patients is if they're organised efficiently and effectively and doing the right things at the right time. So giving them the data that's cleansed and is believable and they can scrutinise is really important. If they scrutinise it and, quite frankly, they find errors all over the place, then they can quickly disengage. So I think that starting point is really important. And once you've got them, goodness, they're your best advocates. They will spread the word like wildfire, and they're the driving force behind a hospital.
Right. Oh, that's great. Well, just a quick pause, just to remind everybody out there that you can join the conversation and type into the Q&A box on your screen if you've got any questions. If you want to get involved on social media, on Twitter, #VisYourWorld. Please keep asking questions. We've got a few more coming in now. So thanks a lot, Rob, for your comments. So, I mean, one of the things that has come up on the Q&A, I guess it's for Anthony, but maybe Adam or anyone, is about data and around sources of data and the effort involved in pulling all this different data together and putting it into a system like Qlik so you can analyse and make decisions. Can you talk about that from a product perspective?
Sure.
How difficult is that?
Yeah, well, I would say this is an area where Qlik has focused a lot of energy over the last year or two, and certainly an area of investment for the years to come. Broadly speaking, what we see is as users have become comfortable with analytics and visualization, they're actually moving back in that value chain. They want to have more direct access to data and information. They want to prepare it themselves. They want to have control over that experience. So we've made investments in that area around connectivity, including doing some acquisitions in that area, around getting data and building those associations, which are so unique to Qlik. So it's definitely an area of investment for us. I'd be curious if you see that with other clients as well.
I think from our perspective, we've just been talking a bit about Agile as well. What we found historically was it was very difficult to use Agile methodologies with the BI stack vendors because you needed so many extra components in the architecture. You needed ETL tools to suck the data in. You needed a data warehouse. You needed a third normal form or semantic layer before you actually got to the consumption layer in the reports. The fact that we've got a much simpler architecture using, let's say, ClickSense Enterprise means we can ingest the data, we can fail fast, we can discover, and it also means that Agile works effectively because we don't have to have a lockdown fixed scope as much as we used to with a BI stack vendor. And that's really the main change. Ingesting data quickly, failing fast, is part of the great discovery features we have in Qlik, but also scaling to enterprise, just like a normal BI stack vendor, is part of the actual architecture that allows us to push forward. And that's been the real differentiator for companies like Accenture working with our clients. Yeah. Our projects can be 4 weeks long, 8 weeks long, instead of 9 months long, and then we find out at UAT what we've delivered was what was asked for, but doesn't solve the business problem. Right. So that's the main game changer for us.
Expectations higher now in terms of speed, and people want to get up and going quickly. And you talked about the consumerization of IT, and it feels like it's a very different world to years ago. That people won't wait 9-10 months. They want something now. They want it quick. It needs to be easy to use. And
well, the visualization tools coming in hand with cloud combined to being the biggest change. Not having to wait weeks and weeks for a infrastructure team to deliver a server allows us to get on and start delivering with hours of starting a project. So we can actually deliver something in hours. It is possible to do that, and we would never been able to have done that in the past without cloud and without tools like Qlik.
Yeah. Okay, great. I mean, on that question of cloud, we haven't really talked about that too much, but there are a few questions around that. But maybe I'll aggregate a few of them that are popping up. More generally, I mean, what's the perspective on cloud from a Qlik angle, first of all? That's one of the questions. The second is, how much of a benefit is there in going to cloud versus staying on a kind of on-premises solution, which maybe you guys could answer in a second. But
sure. So cloud is a major investment area for Qlik as an organization. Qlik Cloud today is, well over 75,000 registered users. It is a very popular way of engaging with Qlik and using it. Qlik Cloud for Business is a very important part of that strategy. So these are critical parts to our product strategy. But I want to be careful and say that it's not the only part of the product strategy. And the long-term direction, if you look over the next few years, is really this concept of the hybrid cloud. And so what we are really imagining is a model in which some workloads operate in the cloud. That could be Qlik's cloud, it could be another private cloud, or a public cloud, or on-premise. And really the opportunity is to span workloads across those different environments where they're optimal, depending on the need and the use case, where the data lies, where the users are, how things scale, et cetera. So
it's a flexibility kind of piece. Okay. And are you finding, Adam, that customers are being kind of driving questions about cloud, or they're talking about the use case and the cloud, the deployment, and how they access it as a secondary thing? Or you find that people are coming to you asking about, we want to do something on the cloud around analytics to solve our business problems?
I would say 3 years ago it was, what's cloud? And trying to answer that question, just like, what's this big data thing? I would say moving into the end of 2016, people are focusing more on the use cases now. And what we're doing is, as well as hybrid cloud, hybrid being splitting the data, we're doing hybrid delivery, where we might do dev and test in the cloud, but still keep production on premise around security constraints and region constraints of where the data is located. So it's not the be-all, the end-all. You don't have to go black and white, and that's really where we're focusing at the moment.
Great.
I see that from a market perspective as well. Perhaps 5 to 10% of net new deployments are in the cloud, but it's not going to be an either or, it's going to be an and, absolutely, where you can go back and forth between these two. I mean, we still work in mainframes today, and 40, 50 years later, right? So.
So
I think as a customer working in the NHS, as any CIRO, Senior Information Responsible Officer, will tell you, we're working with lots of sensitive information, and it scares people, this concept of cloud, sticking it all up somewhere. They read the headlines about, you know, access to data, and it does frighten them. So we remain to be convinced. I guess that's, you know, the challenge we put out there. Convince us that it is 100% secure, that people can't access this really personal data, and then obviously there's a case to be made. But as of yet, we kind of remain on the fence with this, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Which kind of goes back to this point of flexibility. Some people want to embrace the cloud, others want to have an on-premise solution or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, and there's a massive regional aspect to this as well, Robert. You're looking at certain parts of Europe are much more conservative, for example, than the United States or the United Kingdom.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, well, that brings our time to an end, so I want to thank you all very much for joining me on this talk show. We hope that you found this informative, and if you would like more information or like to see more of the content that we've been talking about today, we actually have a follow-up series of webinars and all sorts of pieces of content that we'll be emailing those of you that are registered for this webinar, and go to it and enjoy that content. And without further ado, thanks everybody, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
That concludes today's event. If you have submitted a question that we didn't answer yet, the expert panel will stay online to answer those, or we will follow up with you via email. We are very interested in your feedback, so please respond to the poll that is showing now. And as Robert said, the Visualize Your World highlights are available, so please visit our website to see more by clicking on the link shown on the screen. Thank you again for attending today's virtual talk show, and we wish you a great rest of the day.